Here are the signs that you're burnt out and not lazy or depressed. I'm Kyle with MedCircle, and thanks for watching this video. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Judy Ho, clinical psychologist. It's a pleasure to see you, Dr. Judy. The first sign that you're burnt out and not lazy or depressed is that you're really lacking energy. You have energy depletion, you're on exhaustion. Can you explain more?
Absolutely. So burnout has been on the rise. We know that from research, approximately 3/4 of all employed people feel burnt out some or most of the time. And burnout does have some overlap with depression symptoms. And so there's definitely this increasing need for us to identify burnout and to try to address the phenomenon, because if it's not addressed and if it's left to go on chronically, it has a number of mental as well as physical health impacts on the person.
So I would consider myself exhausted a lot of the time. I can pinpoint that it's due to my work schedule and the fact that I live with Crohn's disease. And when my depression is being, at the forefront of everything, I'm certainly more exhausted. So how can I tell if my exhaustion is from Crohn's, depression, or burnout at work?
Well, there's three defining features of burnout, which we're going to be discussing in this video. But the key point is that these three major factors that people present with have to relate to occupational settings or occupational problems or experiences that they're having in the work environment. So you can certainly be burnt out by being a caregiver to a sick family member, for example, but that wouldn't be the kind of burnout that we're talking about here, where we're really directing this to people who are working at their jobs and affiliating these types of symptoms to the conditions or experiences that they have while they're working.
Yes, understood. So this second component then is a mental distance from job or occupation. What are we talking about here?
This idea of not being able to stay connected to the work that you're doing and to stay empathetic if you are in a giving profession where you're taking
Mm,
care of others, service providers like mental health providers, masseuses, physical therapists, where you really just feel like you're almost just going through the motions. And there isn't that deeper sense of spiritual satisfaction that you get from your job anymore. That really does tie in actually to why people feel exhausted all the time, which is that first factor you spoke of, where people just feel like no matter how much rest they get, they're just exhausted, especially when they start having to think about their work to-do list, or when they're at work, they just feel like there's no energy, no matter how exciting of a day it is, no matter how many wins they have at work, they just feel tired all the time. Even after they come back from vacation, maybe they thought that that was going to fix things. But when they come back from vacation, not only are they still tired, they still feel disconnected from the job that they're doing.
a lot of people would hear you say, I'm not finding a spiritualness at work. I think that's what you said. And they would say, well, yeah, I don't have that. I just go to work to get a paycheck and then I go home and I try to forget about everything at work. Do we have to be do we have to find something as profound as a spiritualness in our work to not suffer from burnout?
I think there should be a deeper sense of satisfaction. So spiritual sense of satisfaction is very different from saying that you have to believe in a higher power per se, but that
Mhm.
you're connected to something bigger than yourself, that your job means something more than a paycheck. You don't have to love your job all the time. I think that would be just the most ridiculous idealism, because jobs are hard. They're called jobs for a reason. And even if you're working at your job of passion, there's going to be tough days. But it's really about this idea that your work means something. It means something to someone other than yourself and your paycheck, right?
Sorry, I had a conversation with Dr. Ramani about, I think it was actually about burnout at work. And I referenced an article I read about the housekeepers at Disney, at one of the Disney parks. And they were the top housekeepers of Disney. And so this researcher wanted to interview them and see what made them become the top housekeepers of all the Disney parks. And they found such an intense passion and purpose behind the housekeepers. These housekeepers would often go above and beyond every room they cleaned by positioning the toys that the kids left behind in the room into new angles. So, Mickey might be watching TV and Goofy might be staring out the window. They would sit in the chairs, or even in some cases go into the shower or the bathtub and lay down. And they said, why would you lay down in the bathtub? And they would say, because this is how the bathtub is going to be experienced by the individual. And I want to make sure that everything they see and everything they experience is as pristine as possible. They took this work to such a passionate level, and they loved it. I mean, the way these people talked about their role was as though they had the best job in the world, and perhaps to them they did, where a lot of us would feel like, oh my gosh, if I have to be a housekeeper at a Disney park, that would be too much stress, So how do we cultivate that purpose, that more meaningful purpose in a job that maybe right now we don't feel that connected to?
Well, I think it's really important, and I love the example that you just gave. And it really gets me thinking about how little we consider connection to values in our day-to-day job. So maybe on the whole, you think about your job and you say, yeah, this job is meaningful, but my problem is on a day-to-day level with my day-to-day tasks, I don't feel that sense of meaning. I just feel like this is grunt work, or I just feel like this is like somebody else's dirty job that they don't want to do. And it's almost like that example you just gave of the housekeepers. Like, they don't see their job that way. They don't see themselves as saying, ugh, I'm just cleaning room after room. Who cares? No, every single room is important to them. Every single detail is important. So I would challenge anybody watching now to think about those day-to-day grunt tasks of your job, and think about whether or not you can connect any of them to any of your top values. If you can, I think that that is going to be a protective factor against burnout, because in the bigger picture, you might know that your job means something important, but it's the day-to-day that's getting you down. It's the fact that you're in a difficult project right now or working with difficult people. So ask yourself, of all the things on my to-do list today and the things that I'm expected to be working on when I get to work, can I connect any of them, all of them, to maybe one or even two of my top values? I think if you can, then you will lose that negative impact of that feeling of disconnectedness that we were talking about.
Really fabulous. And Dr. Judy's value card sorts we will link to at the bottom of this video. It's a great exercise on determining what your values are. And believe me, they change over time. So I like to do it, maybe twice a year to see what my values are. Finally, we have this trait of negativity or cynicism towards the job or occupation. Why could this indicate burnout rather than just a feeling of depression or laziness?
Well, this is a really important piece of the burnout experience, because it's really that kind of cynicism that you develop over time, where maybe in the beginning, you start your job, you think you're going to change the world, or at least a few people's lives. And
Yeah.
as the job wears on and you're getting burnt out, you just think, why does this even matter in the grand scheme of things? Who cares? And I think a good litmus test for this is when you hear somebody who might be projecting more positivity that day, or maybe have that half glass full mentality. And as you're listening to them speak, you're internally rolling your eyes like, oh, right, like that's gonna happen. If you find yourself doing this routinely and not just, once every blue moon, I think that's when you know that this is more of a phenomenon of burnout, where you think, yeah, I would love to be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed like this person with stars in their eyes, but those nice things are never going to happen. So why should we even care? And you can see the connection of that, because why should we even care leads you to be even less connected to your work. And then every day just feels like a grind. You become more and more exhausted. So it links to all of the other factors as well.
Have you ever experienced burnout, Dr. Judy?
Oh, definitely. I love my job. I can say for sure that my job is my passion, and I always see the big picture of what I'm doing. But there are days where the schedule is just so intense. And when I wake up, I'm just thinking, I have a 16-hour workday today. And no matter how much you love your job, that's still exhausting. And so I definitely have experienced burnout. And when I notice that, I really try to focus more on taking better care of myself that week, making sure I carve out time for myself that day, maybe learning to say no to a few things, as hard as that is to do, because everything sounds great. You really want to do all of it because this is your passion, but you are still a human being and you only have the same number of hours that all of us have. And that's when I really have to prioritize and start saying no, and just really making sure that whatever I agree to, they link up to at least one of my top values, or else I don't say yes to it.
Yeah, well said. We'll link to resources below this video for you if you believe that you may be experiencing burnout. It's great to know that you're experiencing burnout, but now what do you do about it? We'll link to resources below to help you out on that. Dr. Judy, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I'm Kyle. Thanks for watching this video. Remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.